What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Checkwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and continuing on with my comic book movie review series, we are now at the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four really has three major movies, and I don't think that any one of them was particularly a great movie. I do think that probably the first one was the best of them all. Rise of the Silver Surfer took a few steps down, and then the reboot was terrible. At least Fantastic Four 2005 had some moments in it that were kind of fun. A lot of things that didn't really make sense and a lot of things that were rushed through. But given what we've seen later with the Fantastic Four, I would rather have this than that. So directed by Tim Story, I guess his surname doesn't apply. You have Ian Gruffudd as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm, The Thing. Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, Invisible Girl. Chris Evans, who we all know now as Captain America, as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Julian McMahon as Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom. Maria Menounos shows up. I didn't even know she was in this, as just a sexy nurse. And Kerry Washington as Alicia Masters. So this kind of rushes through the beginning of the origins of the Fantastic Four, because they have a lot that they are trying to do with this movie. You're introducing four main characters, a main villain, explain how they got their powers, do the whole, character finding their powers bit, and eventually you get to the face-off with Dr. Doom. So initially it did feel a bit rushed. There were a lot of very quick explanations about how this space cloud has this energy they think they can harness to help humanity. But of course, the cloud itself is dangerous to people, and so they have this space station that has these walls that's supposed to protect them. Of course they don't. So they have these four scientists who go up on this space station that is basically owned by Julian McMahon's Victor Von Doom. Definitely a departure for the character from the comics, being as though he's kind of a tyrant type in the comics, and here he's just like a shrewd businessman. And that would have been fine if they had done it right, but they didn't really hit the nail on the head with that either. And of course, you see right at the beginning of the movie that everybody is kind of intertwined in some way. Sue Storm knows Reed Richards. They were in this attempt at a prior relationship, and now she's kind of with Victor Von Doom. Johnny Storm, obviously her brother, who had apparently worked with Ben Grimm in the past, and so they're all kind of interconnected already. So they go up to the space station. Obviously things go wrong. The cloud hits all of them with this energy, and it gives them all these powers. And so kind of the next phase here is them finding their powers. And it did have some great moments of humor in this movie. Like there was a part where they all just come back to Earth from the space station, and Johnny Storm is sitting there in front of Ben Grimm, and he's like, I'm sorry, we tried everything we could do, but there was really nothing we could do to help save you. And Ben Grimm's like, what happened to me? And we all know that he becomes the Thing. And so automatically we're thinking he's already the Thing. And then Johnny Storm shows him a mirror, and it's just his face. And he's like, sorry, there's nothing we can do to save your face. So kind of a funny moment there. Chris Evans still definitely showing his sense of humor, which was cool. He definitely isn't the Chris Evans we now know. He's definitely matured a lot as an actor. But he still had some rays of light in this show. And when they all start finding their powers, when they all start, Ben Grimm turns into the Thing. That obviously doesn't go well for him. His wife leaves him because she sees what he is now. And so, his life just kind of starts crumbling. Reed Richards doesn't really know how to react to his ability, basically turning into like Elastic Man. And but again, going back to Chris Evans and his sense of humor and the way they played him up, it was actually very cool because he loved his power. He saw that he was able to light himself on fire and do all this crazy stuff and then go back to normal. And so he loved it. He thought it was greatness. There were a lot of conflicting things with Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm, because Ben Grimm, this very serious soldiery type guy who just had his world crash around him because he turned into the Thing, and then Chris Evans loving his new powers and just kind of being a kid having fun with it, basically. They did a lot of stuff that was very fun with those two personalities clashing. Unfortunately, those were probably the best parts of the movie. Victor Von Doom, not only was he not really fleshed out, and definitely a departure from the character we knew and understood, not just in terms of his origins or his status in the world, but also his powers. Like, Doctor Doom in the comics is easily one of the most powerful characters in the whole Marvel universe. Like, Doctor Doom is where it's at when it comes to villains. And here, they gave him some powers and he was able to do stuff, and none of it really tied into what he really was in the comics, except for like the metal skin out, like the metal alloy, they kind of gave him that. But it just was a very weak, watered down version of Doctor Doom. The graphics for this movie, they were trying to do things well past the technology they had. And especially when it came to Reed Richards and his stretching ability, like the body morphing to stretch him and make him look like he's becoming incredibly long. It looked really, really bad. The Thing looked good. The Human Torch looked decent. And then Sue Storm, like, let's be honest, man. They picked Jessica Alba because she's got a great fucking body. And they got her mostly naked a few times during this movie. And that's all that was, dude. Which is sad to see. They did have her use her force field ability quite a bit. But I mean, really, it was like, and like one time made no sense. So like, there's this scene where there's this guy who's apparently a failed businessman or lost a bunch of money, and he's ready to jump off a bridge, but there's Ben Grimm sitting right next to him. And so the guy sees Ben Grimm. Grimm's like, hey buddy, look at me. How bad can it really be? The guy freaks out, starts walking backward on this bridge full of traffic. It's a bridge kind of like Golden Gate or something like that. But at any rate, this guy falls into traffic. Ben has to jump down off this beam, this I-beam that they were walking on, and stops this truck with his body. That was pretty cool. It was a semi that they kind of looked like it just smashed into Ben Grimm and just got stuck in place. And so there's this big car pile up where this fire truck kind of goes halfway off the bridge and they have to save the fire truck. But during all that, there's a section where Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Reed Richards are in a different area when all this starts, and they have to figure out how to get through the crowd. And so they're like, hey Sue, why don't you use your invisibility, take off all your clothes, and then you can just walk through the crowd. Okay, so she does that, and then they all appear on the other side. Well, how the hell did they get over there too? Things like that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It was just like I said, wanting Jessica Alba to get her clothes off. And I'm a big fan of Jessica Alba getting her clothes off, but let's be honest, it's just objectifying and pointless to the story and doesn't really make a lot of sense. So there were a lot of issues that I had with that. I did like the scene itself though when they were pulling the fire truck up. I think the ending scene, of course, there's this final conflict when a very disgruntled Victor Von Doom realizes he's getting his powers and just decides he's going to take over. And so you have that big final conflict. It was decent, but I don't know if it made complete sense, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, as a whole, the movie was okay. It had some high points to it, but honestly, most of them were not. The special effects, like I said, well past what they could do for the time. The story was kind of rushed, didn't really make a lot of sense in a few places. Von Doom was a very watered down version of what he should have been. And so, like, it was fun if you just shut your brain off and you want to see some action, but that's what you're going to have to do, is shut your brain completely off. And so I think for that I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Kind of a guilty pleasure for me in some ways, because I did like the Fantastic Four, but not a great movie, if I'm being honest. So that's just kind of where I'm at with this. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz. Kaged Nation, out.